to Professor Skerritt.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just referring to some recent data collected by the Cancer Council, which finds only 8.6% of Australians that use liquid nicotine and vaping products have a prescription, or effectively complying with the prescription model. Have you done any work? Is that statistic sound about correct?
We have had those figures quoted to us. We don't have any way of verifying it, but clearly it shows that there is still an unacceptable level of nicotine vaping products getting to our children and adolescents. And so this is why the Minister...
Hang on. No.
So
my question didn't mention children or adolescents at all. It's simply of the 500,000 vapers in Australia, the vast majority of whom are adults, only apparently 1 in 10 or so have a prescription. Is that? Do you have any work on the compliance with your regulation?
We don't have any information on the number of people who might be obtaining it illegally.
I mean, it would seem to me that the current regulation, and look, just anecdotally, you know this talking to people, that a lot of people aren't getting prescriptions. It's not exactly working. And isn't there a situation here where a regulation which is not being complied with is actually helping create the conditions for a black market, which does generate those outcomes you have referred to earlier, of having it more accessible for younger Australians?
Well, I don't know how it creates a condition. The question is whether we have the appropriate framework in place. And that's why, as I said, the government, soon after election, wanted to look at how it could be reviewed, because their major concern are children and as us principals and parents, very concerned about children and young adults and adolescents accessing it. So the framework is being reviewed.
I completely accept that. I don't think anyone would disagree that having these products accessible to young children is reprehensible and should be combated. The issue here is how effective the current regime is, and it doesn't seem that effective at all. Just turning to, there was a question I noticed from Senator Abetz. It's SQ 222-4080, and that was asking you about this. I think you mentioned the review after the election, but there was also, in reference to his question, a 12-month evaluation. You referenced that you would do an initial evaluation after about 12 months of the prescription model. How is that evaluation progressing?
Well, as I indicated earlier, very soon after the election, we met several times with the Minister to look at what was working, and as you've indicated, worries about access by children and young adults, and it's going a different direction, as I indicated. So the Minister brought together some experts in the field and is considering next steps at the moment. So it's going that direction rather than an independent review, because the urgency of making sure our children and adolescents do not access nicotine for vaping is extreme. And so
that initial evaluation you referred to in Senator Abetz's question, that's redundant now. You're not progressing that at all. That's what I'm taking?
Well, that response was prior to the change of government, and the Minister is looking at alternative approaches.
Okay. Also, another answer to Senator Abetz, this is SQ 3. It was regarding illicit vape sales to young Australians. The TGA said, and I quote, "It does not accept responsibility for the unlawful supply of NVPs, nicotine vaping products, to children." I mean, so I just was a little bit shocked at that answer. Are you saying you have no responsibility to regulate or ensure that? I'll be very clear. I'm not trying to blame you for all provision of these products. Obviously, it's not your fault, but I would have thought you'd have some oversight here.
Regulatory framework. So, Senator, within the current regulatory framework, it is intended to stop access to children and young adults. But clearly it is insufficient. It's not working well enough at the moment.
I agree.
Because children and young adults can go to tobacconists, they can go to convenience stores, they can buy product over the internet. And so there are many ways around the current regulatory framework, which is why the government is reviewing it. But TGA is not standing there in the street corner.
I agree completely. And given the time, I've got some other questions I'll put on notice, but I would just say again, it seems to me we should focus our enforcement efforts on the young, not on the old, and not on consenting adults. I've got some questions.
That's where we do, Senator.
I've got some time. If I've got time, I've got NHMRC.